Do you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Maybe you're even barely getting by making minimum payments. With credit card debt hitting record highs, National Debt Relief offers real debt relief solutions for people struggling to keep up. These options may reduce a large portion of credit card debt for those who qualify. You don't need to declare bankruptcy, and you may be able to pay back less than you owe, regardless of your credit. National Debt Relief has already reduced the credit card debt for more than 550,000 consumers. So don't wait. If you owe 10, 20, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt, you can now take advantage of this financial debt relief as the cost of living increases. To find out how much you could save, visit nationaldebtrelief.com. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
Hey now. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now. Hi everybody. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Coming up on today's episode, I'm going to be talking a lot about yesterday's report from the Auditor General. The Auditor General, for those who don't know, her name is Karen Hogan, and her job is to audit the government. If you're a taxpayer, I feel like you should absolutely pay attention to what our Auditor General has to say, because in a lot of cases, the Auditor General can expose waste and corruption and all sorts of things within the government. The Auditor General works for the government, but doesn't actually work for the governing party. They're meant to be bipartisan and really just report on some of the areas in the government that are doing well and some of the areas that need a little bit of improvement. And by the way, I'm putting that very mildly because most of the time they need a lot of improvement. So I'm going to play for you yesterday's Auditor General's report. She covered 3 different areas, from the RCMP to immigration. And immigration, if I'm being honest, is going to be the bulk of what we talk about on today's episode of Scott Fox After 9. I feel like that's an issue that a lot of Canadians have woken up to and realized has become a problem. Canada, for many years, let a lot of people come in, many of them unchecked, many of them here under false pretenses, and that's created a big strain on our social safety net. It has taken up jobs. It has contributed to the housing crisis and in so many other ways. So we're going to talk about immigration in particular when I get to the Auditor General's report, and I promise you that is coming up in just a few minutes. Before I get to that, though, I want to talk about 2 things in particular. Number one, I'm still thinking about this tragedy with that Air Canada flight that crashed on landing at LaGuardia Airport. I'm having a real hard time wrapping my mind around exactly what happened here. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I'm thinking about the last incident, and that was in January 2025, another Bombardier CRJ flight that was en route to Ronald Reagan Airport, got hit by a helicopter as it was landing. Took out the helicopter, took out the plane, lots of fatalities. It was a horrible tragedy. Now, another CRJ plane gets into another highly improbable incident where it crashes into a fire truck on the runway. When does that ever happen? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm thinking about the odds of it. You know, when it comes to that plane crash in Washington, 3 seconds on either side, and that's not a crash. A few dozen feet on either side, and that's not a crash. But it was a 1 in a million that helicopter hit that plane on the exact path at the exact time that it was landing. Now this one in New York, the odds of that fire truck crossing the runway at the exact second that plane was coming in to land. What are the odds of that? Again, 3 seconds on either side, and that doesn't happen. If the plane had been a couple dozen feet higher, that doesn't happen. Truly 1 in a million. The odds of these happening are just staggering, and I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around that. Now, I don't want you to, for a second, think that I'm suggesting something nefarious happened here. I'm not promoting a conspiracy theory. I'm just pointing out the odds of those things happening with precision, accuracy. Staggering. I also want to play, again, just like I did yesterday, a little bit of the audio from air traffic control, because there's a moment in that video that I think everybody should note here as we try and figure out exactly what went wrong. So let me play just a little bit of the air traffic control audio. Listen to this.
LaGuardia Tower from Trust 7.
Frontier 4195, amend your climb out. LaGuardia 7 departure, Coney climb off of runway 13.
Tower Delta 2603, ILS 4.
2603, stand by. Who's the vehicle needed to cross the runway?
Truck 1 and Company, LaGuardia Tower.
Truck 1 and company.
Truck 1 and Company, LaGuardia Tower, requesting to cross 4 at Delta.
Truck 1 and company, cross 4 at Delta.
Truck 1 and Company, crossing 4 at Delta.
Okay, at that point, the air traffic controller has now given permission to that fire truck to cross the runway. Runway 4, he's allowed to cross at crossing D. Well, that's going to put him right in the path of a landing plane. And so far, it doesn't seem like the air traffic controller has caught that yet.
Frontier 4195, just stop there, please. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop.
And there we go. There's where it was. Here's the thing that some people are noting. It kind of sounds like, at first, after the air traffic controller gave permission for the truck to cross, he quickly said stop. But he didn't say necessarily stop truck 1. He said stop to the Frontier plane that he had also been talking to. Let me play that last part one more time.
Company crossing 4 at Delta.
Frontier 4195, just stop there, please.
I have to think he intended to tell the truck to stop, but he told the flight to stop and the truck kept going. Then he realized, oh, wait, truck 1 stop.
Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Go 2603, go around, runway heading 2000.
And I think the rest we all know. I think most people have heard that. I do also want to fast forward to the end, a part that I did not play yesterday. After he realized, oh my God, there's been a catastrophic collision here. He then had to tell the other planes and other flights that were getting ready to take off, you can't go.
It was an emergency earlier and I messed up.
I think good to watch.
It's going to be closed for a little while. 4195, I got the word that we're going to be closed for a little while. If you want prepared to return to the ramp, let me know.
Yeah, we got stuff in progress for that, man. That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my staff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
I messed up. I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that because there are people who are dead. I don't know what the status is of the flight attendant who was sitting in the jump seat, but she was thrown right out the front of the aircraft. They found her approximately 100 meters down the runway, still belted in. I mean, it's an amazing miracle that she's alive. Unbelievable that she lived through that. But I mean, I can't even imagine what that was like. The impact was so great that not only was she thrown out the front of the airplane along with the pilots, all the wires and stuff, they were thrown forward. Apparently, most of the injuries were people who had been thrown forward initially when the pilot hit the brakes and then jolted forward again when the plane made impact with the fire truck. Absolutely wild set of circumstances. I mean, what happened here is just shocking. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, but the investigation continues. The Canadians and the Americans have both got investigative teams in New York trying to figure out exactly what went wrong here. But the first glance from someone who is not an expert in this field, it really just seems like it was confusion in air traffic control. And the wrong instruction was given, and it was too late to take it back by the time that instruction had been given. Sad story all around. Still thinking about those pilots. Still thinking about all the people that were traumatized by this. It really is a sad situation. Before I get into the content from the Auditor General's report yesterday, there's one more thing I want to do on the pod right here at the beginning, because I think this is something that a lot of people should hear, and I think it's something that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to. It's a post on X, and it is from an author named Jeff Brown. Now, I personally don't know Jeff, but this has been retweeted a lot of times, 87,000 views as I look at it, and I think it's resonating with a lot of people. So I'm going to read you this post that was put out by Jeff Brown here. This is what it says. I've been speaking to some people who live in Guelph and Toronto. Just simply bringing up how they're feeling about what is going on politically and economically in Canada. And I can honestly say I have never seen such a level of rage coming out of my fellow boomers in my life. And it's all directed at Trump and America. It's like their whole history of going to America, being grateful for America's protection, even loving parts of the U.S. has completely collapsed in the face of their belief that the U.S. wants to make us the 51st state. They really took those memes and words seriously, and because nobody really explained why he was saying it, and then in brackets, it says he doesn't hate Canada. He hates the last two globalist liberal administrations. It has congealed into rage. And then Carney looks like a savior, even though he is actually the globalist who wanted to destroy Canada. It's a bloody mess. How many people can relate to that after having had a conversation with an older person? Because I deal with that all the time. Not just with my own parents, but I run into people, older people, all the time. And it's true. All of the great memories they have of America, all the great feelings they had about Americans, completely thrown out the window because they bought a narrative that was never real a year ago. At this point, most people can acknowledge Trump's 51st state thing wasn't serious. It was basically a joke. And it went way, way, way too far. I think most people can agree on that. But it is amazing how seriously older people took that, and they are hanging on to the hate. And that's part of the reason that we are in the political climate that we're in right now. And when you look at the latest polls, I believe it was the Toronto Sun that published some new polling that broke things down by demographics. And one of the things that's very apparent is the vast majority of Mark Carney's support right now is still coming from people that are 60 plus. Still coming from older people that think Donald Trump is coming to annex our country and that Mark Carney is going to be the guy to stop it. It's almost like some people, particularly young versus old, are living in completely alternate timelines. Really bizarre. Anyway, I thought that was a great insight from Jeff, and I think he's spot on. I think there's a lot of people that have noticed something very similar, and they're trying to put it into words. I thought Jeff did a great job there. If you want to follow him on X, take a look for his profile. Jeff Brown is his name. He is an author, and I really don't know what else he does, but either way, good tweet. I was impressed by that one. Now let's get into yesterday's Auditor General report.
I will begin with our audit of the federal government's project to modernize its pay system. Overall, we found that the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat and Public Services and Procurement Canada were managing the project to ensure that the federal public servants' pay will be accurate and on time once the new Dayforce system is launched. The audit identified risks. The Secretariat and the Department have an opportunity to address them because the project is in its early stages. The need to simplify and standardize pay rules before introducing a new system was a core lesson learned from the transition to the Phoenix pay system. It is concerning to me that a decade later, there has been little progress made to simplify pay rules. As a result, the department is customizing Dayforce at an estimated additional cost of almost $4 million per year. We also found limited progress in clearing the backlog of requests to fix employees' pay. As of last September, more than 233,000 pay transactions remained outstanding, affecting more than 133,000 public servants served by the Miramichi Pay Center. This creates a risk of transferring existing pay errors into the Dayforce system, which could undermine its effectiveness from the start. In January of this year, Public Services and Procurement Canada shortened the schedule by 3 years to onboard departments to Dayforce. Although this decision is intended to reduce the complexity and cost of running two systems in parallel, it means less time to clear the backlog and prepare departments for the transition.
Okay, wow. For those who don't know, it wasn't that long ago that the federal government spent a massive amount of money trying to launch this Phoenix pay system. This was supposed to manage payroll for the federal civil service. And it has turned out to be a complete boondoggle from start to finish. Costs us so much money. You just heard the Auditor General say, what was there, over 200,000 pay discrepancies that are still outstanding. So what they've decided to do is throw in the towel, and they're going to transition to the same system that many private companies use, Dayforce. Okay, fine. We use Dayforce here at the radio station that I work at as well. Dayforce is very, very common. But now, because the Phoenix system that we spent a ton of money on, like it was in the billions, I believe, it is so messed up, and they're trying to speed up the onboarding to Dayforce. Now some of those mistakes that we had in the Phoenix system are going to end up in Dayforce just because they've sped up the timeline. And we're going to have to spend another $4 million a year more to try and manage the Dayforce system compared to the Phoenix pay system, which we had created and doesn't seem to work anyway. What a colossal waste of our money. And how bad are things for the civil service? I mean, it's one thing that so many of you are losing your jobs. We still can't even figure out your pay. That is a pretty damning report from the Auditor General. Now, that's when it comes to payroll and the Phoenix payroll system. Now let's hear about the RCMP.
Although the force made recruitment a top priority, the targets it set fell well short of actual staffing needs, and it failed to meet those targets. As of September 2025, we found that the RCMP needed at least 3,400 police officers. Shortages of frontline officers in contract and Indigenous policing were widespread across Canada. As of September 2025, vacancy rates were above the force's critical threshold in 9 out of 11 of the provinces and territories it serves. These high vacancy rates pose a clear risk to the RCMP's ability to maintain capacity to deliver policing services. Slow application processing was a key factor impacting recruitment efforts. The RCMP missed its target processing time for 97% of the applications it received. This made it harder to fill training classes. Some classes were canceled, and fewer cadets were trained than expected, further contributing to the shortages.
What the hell is going on? 97% missed targets. Are you kidding me? Why is it so hard to find people that want to be members of the RCMP? Typically, being a police officer is a good job. You know, it's a vocation for some people. For others, it's just a well-paying union job. Why is it so hard to get RCMP officers here, and are they even trying? We're short over 3,000 RCMP officers. We're short in 9 of 11 provinces. How is that a thing? That is pretty crazy if you ask me, especially when you consider how much money we spend on the RCMP. We're offering them more. Hire more police officers. We need them. And they can't get their act together and get these cops hired, trained, and out on the street. Complete madness there. But that is another one from the Auditor General. Now let's get to the one that I think is going to be the bulk of this episode of the pod. Let's talk about immigration. Here again is the Auditor General, Karen Hogan.
Our second audit concluded that Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada reduced the number of new study permits issued, but fell short in other key areas. In 2024, the department issued just under 150,000 permits, well below the forecast of 350,000. Some provinces, particularly those with smaller populations, were disproportionately affected. For example, Newfoundland and Labrador and Saskatchewan were both expected to see an increase of 10% in approved study permits compared to 2023, but instead experienced a decrease of at least 59%. While the department introduced a tool to verify acceptance letters from learning institutions, it did not effectively investigate or follow up on high-risk cases. Over 153,000 potential cases of non-compliance with study permits were identified, but the department only investigated a small number. It also did not pursue 800 cases involving fraudulent documentation discovered after permits were approved. Overall, the department needs to act on the information it has to address integrity concerns in the program.
Okay, those are just the top line numbers there from the Auditor General, who seems to, again, have done some real great work here. Let me dive down a little bit deeper, though, and give you some numbers before we get to the Q&A here, because I found this completely fascinating, what she said when it came to foreign students and the amount of people that were suspected of possibly being involved in fraud that needed investigation. The details are crazy. 150,000 cases got flagged. These are possible abuses of the student permit, the student visa. That's what it is. 150,000 cases were flagged. Of those, only about 4,000 investigations were launched. In other words, there's accusations against 150,000. Only 4,000 of them did we even look into. And of those 4,000, 1,600, almost half, were marked inconclusive after the students simply didn't reply to the letter from the government. Seriously? So that leaves us with 2,400 out of 150,000 that got investigated. One of the serious claims here is that a lot of these people are coming to Canada under the guise of they want to study, they want to go to university or college, they want to get a post-secondary education here in Canada. And that's great. But they're not actually coming here for the education. In some cases, they never even report to the school. They're using it as a backdoor way to get into the country and be allowed to work and take advantage of Canada's social safety net. 150,000 cases flagged. Only 2,400 of them were actually investigated. That is completely bananas. How many people are here ripping us off right now?
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Let's get to some of the Q&A before we get to a little bit more talk on immigration.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hogan. Thanks for taking the time today. I just want to get your thoughts on something Minister Diab said during her appearance at the Immigration Committee. This happened while you were at the Public Accounts Committee, so I don't imagine you had a chance to hear her comments. But she was talking about how this audit just captures the preliminary stages of reforms they're bringing in, stressing that it only covers 18 months of what she's calling a multi-year process, and only 4 months of that is when she was the minister. Just what do you make of this initial response from Minister Diab when being asked questions about some of the serious concerns you raised about integrity in the system?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the reforms that were brought about for the program had two objectives, right? One was to see a decrease in the number of study permits, and we saw that decrease was sharper than intended, and it brought about unintended consequences, right? There was certain provinces that instead of receiving an increase saw a decrease. So I would expect that even though it's early on in the reforms, that there would be collaboration with partners in the provinces and in the post-secondary institutions to make adjustments if needed, if this was not the intended outcomes. But I think when you look at integrity, while there were some adjustments made to improve the integrity of the program, what's concerning for me is that the department isn't acting on the information that it has. There are so many things that were raised by the department themselves and then no follow through. So for example, the 153,000 cases of students who were potentially identified as not following the terms of their permit, while only 4,000 were investigated. Within those 4,000, about half of them were closed because the students stopped communicating with the immigration department. I would expect that they'll take that all the way through. That should be happening no matter where you are in the reforms. That should be acting on the data you have to preserve the integrity of programs should be something that's worried about at the start when you get an application, throughout the application, and then when the application or the permit has expired.
Isn't that common sense? I mean, just stop and think about this system here. Isn't what the Auditor General just said complete and total common sense? You know, we have a serious problem here. Way too many people are looking for backdoor ways to get into Canada. Way too many. And when they come here, they take up our jobs, they live in houses that should rightfully belong to Canadians, and they take advantage of our social safety net, all the handouts from government, all those check rebates, they get health care and what have you. These are things that should be reserved for Canadians who pay taxes. People that come here on a study permit, well, that's a different story. If they're all 100% legitimate, above board, and we trust that when they're done their education, they're going to leave, maybe we can talk about whether or not they're allowed to work when they're here, whether or not they should get health care versus whether or not they should buy private insurance. I mean, there's a lot of different reforms that can be made. We're not even trying. We're not even trying. 2,400 cases investigated out of 153,000.
Just follow up on that. I want to ask about the 800 some odd visas that were approved and then ultimately found maybe there was like a bogus applicant acceptance letter used or some other thing that would make the visa, potentially that would make the visa invalid. You said that the investigations and the follow-up here in the audit, you were told that follow-up is discretionary, but the lack of that follow-up could create a cascade of issues, including not flagging if these people applied for another kind of immigration permit. Did you ever get a concrete reason as to why this discretionary look wasn't taken?
Mm-hmm. No, there is clearly tools in their toolkit, things that they can do when they believe that fraudulent documentation was used or if a student isn't following the conditions of the permit. And we didn't see them consider that in these 800 cases. I think it's important to know their own risk processes identified these 800 cases, but then no action was taken. And when we looked into where they were, that's when we found out that the majority have applied for some other permit. A renewal of a study permit, a work permit, permanent residency, or asylum. And to date, about half of them have been approved. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't have been approved, but the absence of having a warning or something on their file to say fraudulent documentation or misrepresentation was used in the initial application means you weren't able to then apply rigor on the second application. So I think they're just not acting on the information they have, and I would expect them to do that. They have the powers and the tools. They just need to use them.
Okay, great words there from Auditor General Karen Hogan. Again, Karen is an impartial person who works for the civil service. Her job is to audit government function and point out to the taxpayers where there's waste, inefficiency, or just plain government incompetence. What would you say that was? Was it waste? Was it incompetence? Was it corruption? How do they explain that? Why do our systems not talk to each other? If we have someone coming here who's applying for a student permit, shouldn't it also say on their file when they apply, when the CBSA opens that up and says, okay, this person wants to come here and they want to go to the University of Calgary and they want to study this? Shouldn't it say right in there if they've applied for any other sort of status in Canada to make it very apparent to the person who's going to make the decision about whether or not they get in or not? Shouldn't it be apparent to the person who's making that decision whether or not they've also applied for work permits, whether or not they've also applied for permanent residency, whether or not they've also applied for asylum in the past? Isn't that just a common sense thing that we should have in there so that the adjudicator has all of the information available about who this person is and what their real intentions are? I'm going to leave the Auditor General there. I thought that was great by Karen Hogan. Real good report, and I certainly appreciate the work that she does in Ottawa because she's pointed out a lot of things that had it not been for her, Canadians would never know how badly they are being ripped off. Now I want to go to yesterday in Ottawa. There was a committee meeting for Citizenship and Immigration Canada. And I want to play for you a little bit of the Conservative Party's critic, Michelle Rempel-Garner, questioning the federal immigration minister, Minister Diab. This is a fascinating exchange. And this is important. This is something that affects us all. If you pay taxes in this country, this directly impacts you.
Minister, the Supreme Court recently ruled in the Kanyenda ruling that pending asylum claimants in Quebec, who many of whom illegally crossed the border at Roxham Road with your government's blessing, have the constitutional right to taxpayer-funded daycare. Do you affirm Quebec's right to use the notwithstanding clause in this specific case should it choose to do so?
That's a great question from Michelle, but I'm going to pause her right there. For those who don't know, in Quebec, the court has affirmed that if you came into Canada illegally, we still have to give you government services like healthcare and childcare. We have to. That's what the court said. Quebec is considering using the notwithstanding clause to overrule that court ruling. The question for the Minister of Immigration is, do you agree that Quebec has the right to do that if the Quebec government truly feels that that ruling from the court was unjust?
Thank you for that question. I know that the government and the Minister of Justice is seized with that particular case, they will have more to say on that. It's not in my purview as the immigration minister.
It is, though. I mean, experts are saying that that ruling is likely to overturn your copay for luxury health benefits for failed asylum claimants. Have you told the Justice Minister that he should probably get on this?
So thanks again for that question. I believe what we have introduced with the copay and the changes that we're making, I believe they're fair and that they're sustainable and are done with the best intention of protecting the asylum or the people that really need the health care, but also protecting.
But just like the CBC reported that you don't talk to your colleagues. So did you tell the Justice Minister that this was a problem?
Again, the Justice Department and the Justice Minister is seized with legal cases and
did you go,
constitutional
hey, Sean,
cases.
This is a problemo? Like, have you talked to him yet?
Again, the changes that we propose to the system, we believe are fair and balanced.
I know you don't answer questions and like salad. We established that last time. The CBC reported that there's 2.1 million temporary residents.
Hold time. Mr. Zubair, point of order.
It was myself, actually.
Oh,
that's fine.
Mr.
No
Fragiscato, sorry, you both sound alike.
We need to hear the answers, and there's a decorum that we all should abide by.
For the record, I would like to put it on the record that it was, in fact, the minister who introduced Tabouleh at this committee before. So she introduced that as fair game.
Thank you, Mr. Fragiscatos. We do want to maintain decorum and order. Ms. Rempel-Garner, continue with your question.
So, Minister, the CBC reported that there's about 2.1 million temporary residents who'll be left in Canada with expiring visas by the end of this year. There's probably about 500,000 undocumented persons on top of that. But even with the Auditor General's findings, you're going to issue another 215,000 foreign work permits of one sort or another this year. Why are you doing that, even though we know most of these millions of citizens won't leave the country involuntarily? That seems kind of crazy to me. Why are you bringing in 200,000 more people when we have a really big youth jobs crisis?
I'm sure you're probably, like me, on the edge of your seat waiting for a thoughtful and truthful answer from the Minister of Immigration. And it's a fair question. Very, very simple. You're going to issue thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of work permits this year to bring people to Canada to do jobs. But we have a youth unemployment crisis nearing 20% youth unemployment. Almost 20%. And that's just the people who are actively looking for jobs. That doesn't even factor in the amount of youth who would probably like a job but have given up looking, or they're just not participating in the process right now, or maybe they're just going to try and find something under the table. Why on earth would we bring people to this country and give them a work permit and all the other perks that come with that, likely a path to being a permanent resident eventually, knowing the government? Why would we do that when we have so many people unemployed, particularly youth in Canada? I know. I've built this up a lot. You're probably thinking, holy cow, Scott, press pause because I want to make some popcorn for this answer. This is going to be great. It's going to be profound and well thought through. It's going to be an indoctrination of amazing government policy. Well, lower your expectations, my friends.
To fill them with low-skilled foreign labor.
So we are aware of the numbers of temporary resident documents that are scheduled to expire each year. Couple of things. Some individuals with expiring documents might hold multiple permits. It could be study, it could be work. Clearly, though, people who have expired permits are expected to leave. Even your leader has said that last week.
Yeah, but the problem is I think you're not letting them.
No one should stay here longer than legally allowed.
No.
Point of order, Gardner.
You guys keep censoring me in this committee.
Miss Rempel-Garner, no one is censoring you. What I'd like to tell Miss Rempel-Garner, please, at the beginning I said, please do not talk over each other. Very hard for our translators to translate two people at the same time. Yes. Kindly allow the answer to happen, and then we'll... yes, Ms. Rempel-Garner.
The witness is obfuscating. She's trying to run the clock because she doesn't have answers to why she's letting... her colleague Patty kowtow to Tim Horton workers.
That's not a point of order, Ms. Rempel-Garner.
All right. On that point.
There you go, Ms. Rempel-Garner. Yes, Mr. Zuberi, point of order.
Thank you for giving space to all of us to raise the points of order, and to the witness for giving the time. On a number
This is not a point of order. This is debate.
Mr. Zuberi, not a point of order.
No. Enough of this.
Mr. Zuberi, it's not a point of order.
I was about to get to my point of order.
Okay, please get to your point of order, Mr. Zuberi.
No, this is my time, and this is now debate.
Your clock is stopped, Ms. Rempel-Garner. Mr. Zuberi.
On more than one occasion in this round, the witness was not able to complete her answer and her sentence. She was interrupted mid-sentence, and I hope that we can actually hear...
This is not a point of order. This
Thank you,
point of order on my privilege.
Mr. Zuberi.
The Liberals on this committee continue to every member of this committee, because the minister is weak. The CBC reported that...
Not a point of order. Thank you.
My privilege is being violated
Not a point of order.
Because you guys keep censoring me. Why don't you just let her fail, as you guys talk to the CBC about?
Ms. Rempel-Garner, thank you. That is, I want to maintain order and decorum.
I just want to point out... Michelle Rempel-Garner, full disclosure, I have a bias. I really like this person. I really like Michelle. I think she does a great job as a critic, and in particular, she does great work and a great example of what can be accomplished in a committee meeting. She's just trying to get an answer from the immigration minister, but she realizes the immigration minister is going to do a word salad. She's going to try and run out the clock because each person asking questions is only allocated so much time, and the answer is included in that time. So if the person doesn't like the question or just wants to get it over with, they really just have to talk in circles for a while. Michelle is trying to make this much more efficient. When she realizes the minister's not going to answer the question, she tries to move on to another question. Now all the Liberal members on this committee are trying to accuse Michelle of, well, you heard it. I mean, it's turning into a complete and total gong show. People are raising points of order that aren't a point of order. It's a mess. And the chair here, Julie Dershowitz, I believe is her name, seems to have lost all control. Michelle just wants to ask some questions and she wants to get some answers. And that's something that we taxpayers should demand of our elected officials, that they're accountable, if not even to us, at least to other members of parliament.
Or you are not being censored. I'm going to start the clock now if you want to continue with your questions.
Yeah, so did you tell your colleague Patty to take a flying leap when she said that Tim Hortons should get more temporary foreign workers after the jobs numbers came out last week? Like, why aren't those jobs going to Canadian workers? And why are you guys kowtowing to Tim Hortons?
So lovely performance as usual, Madam. Thank you for the question. We have a letter from many conservative members who have written to me and to Minister Haidu and to another minister of requesting those changes. In fact, pleading that they require those changes.
That's right.
In their province.
They were pleading to end the temporary foreign worker program and replace it with a standalone program for agriculture.
Absolutely not the case.
No, it is. And I know for a fact.
Absolutely not the case. You were not copied on those letters.
Oh, I was. I was, and I saw them. And now you're misleading the committee. Would you like me to read that to you, or would you like to say that that was a performance too? Look, I get it. Your colleagues have to cover for you. They go to the CBC to say they can't talk to you. You don't talk to your colleagues and the ministers about serious issues like this. That's a problem. I'm going to ask you this. You were supposed to be here for 2 hours today. Why are you leaving at the 1 hour mark? Is it because you can't handle basic questions like this? Like, why aren't you fighting for Canadian kids' jobs?
That's exactly what we do day in, day out. I fight for them as the minister. The government is fighting for them. I say to you, it's best that you start fighting with them as well.
No, point of order. I understand that my colleague wants the minister's job, but he's over-talking her now.
Ms. Rempel-Garner.
Like, oh my God.
Ms. Rempel-Garner, please calm down. Mr. Fragiscatos, point of order.
Members have time to ask questions. Of course, I respect that. But
you overtalked the minister.
Ms. Rempel-Garner, please allow the point of order.
Of course, on policy and not turn this into personal issues.
Thank you, Mr. Fragiscatos.
No. This is not a point of order. This is Liberal ministers trying.
Not a point of order.
You guys are eating my time up because this woman can't answer basic questions on her file.
Ms. Rempel-Garner, please calm down. We have stopped your time.
Don't tell a woman to calm down. That's very sexist.
Please, Ms. Rempel-Garner.
What a complete and total disaster. What the hell is going on in Ottawa? And why can't the immigration minister answer that question? It was Blacklock's Reports, which, by the way, I will give them the time of day all day long. Blacklock Reports is a fantastic online publication that receives zero government funding. Zero. Holly Doan is an excellent reporter. And what they do is they call themselves Minding Ottawa's Business. And they do a lot of freedom of information requests, and they expose a lot of things that you will never see exposed by the mainstream media. And that is just a fact. Blacklocks does great reports, and one of the things that they recently reported, I believe it was earlier this week or late last week, that there are a collection of Tim Hortons franchisees that are lobbying the Liberals to try and allow more foreign workers into Canada. And of course, the only way to do that is to claim they can't find Canadians that are willing to do the job. Let's be honest. There's no shortage of people that are qualified, able, and willing to work at Tim Hortons. That is an immigration scam. And that's part of the reason, if I'm being honest, that I do not go to Tim Hortons anymore. I don't, I won't, never again. Tim Hortons lobbying the federal government to allow more foreign workers in so that what? They can pay cheap labor? So they can bring friends and family over? I don't know what their strategy is, but they really want these temporary foreign workers, and I do not support it. We have Canadians that need and want jobs, particularly now. For Tim Hortons to try and create some cockamamie story that we need more foreign workers is absolute bullshit. Complete and total bullshit. Don't you tell me you can't find anybody willing to work at a Tim Hortons. That doesn't even come close to passing the smell test. That's complete nonsense. And whatever their real motivations are, I don't know if we'll ever know, but they're wrong. And the government should say, you can take a flying leap. We are not bringing more people here, low-skilled workers that are going to suck off our social safety net and take jobs from Canadians. We're just not doing it. You need employees? Go hire them. Hundreds of thousands of them are looking for jobs right now, particularly young people who have no problem, generally speaking, working for minimum wage. That's exactly what they should be doing. Looking for young people or looking for anybody who needs a job. That's what they've got to do. Don't you dare lie and say we need to bring more people here. That's bull. Let me play for you just the wrap up here. I'm going to play for you first off the immigration minister. After the committee meeting, she stepped out and she spoke on the findings of the Auditor General, which were quite damning on her file, let alone that performance in the committee meeting. Not a good day for Minister Diab. Here she is.
I want to thank the Office of the Auditor General for its audit on IRCC's reforms to the International Student Program. The Auditor General recognizes the progress we've made to strengthen the program, including reducing the number of international students, diversifying the student population, and improving program integrity through the new letter of acceptance verification system. Les étudiants internationaux apportent des bénéfices importants au Canada, mais le système se doit être viable, crédible et bien géré. In 2024, the government acted to curb unsustainable growth, ease pressure on housing and communities, and strengthen integrity after years of rapid demand-driven increases. The measures are working. Our new government is taking back control of our immigration system and reducing the temporary population. Les plus récents données
I cut out the French just so you know. Hey, listen, you're not taking back control of the system. You're mildly, just to make the public not lose complete faith, trying to tweak the system that they broke. They've been in power for what, 10 years now? 10 years. They let as many people come here as they possibly could. They were looking for ways to bring people to Canada for whatever their motive was. And we can all speculate about that. A lot of people think it was to import votes. A lot of people think you bring these people here, they get dependent on the government, and they're always going to vote for the government. That's what a lot of people think and believe, and frankly, it's hard to argue that narrative. Now they're going to try and fix the system. It's funny, that was a very damning report from the Auditor General. She's only cherry picking out the good parts. No comment on the negative parts. Just thanking her for her report and thanking her for commenting on the good things that she did. That's messed up. It was not a good report. That was a terrible performance in committee. Canadians are owed answers here. We got to stop going to Tim Hortons. Now let's go to the House of Commons again. This is Michelle Rempel-Garner after speaking in committee.
Here's the upshot. We have the Minister of Immigration here today admitting that the government is still bringing in very high levels of foreign student permits, knowing that there are, well over, as reported by the CBC, close to 2.9 million people in the country that are either on expired or will have their visas expired this year. That's on top of reports from the Globe that say that there are at least 500,000 undocumented persons in the country. On top of all of this, we have a 14% youth unemployment rate. We had very bad job numbers last week, and we really didn't get a sense of confidence from the minister that the system was being brought back to control. In fact, when we brought up that there was a Black Logs report this morning about a memo within Employment and Development Canada that said that essentially they admitted that they knew that the youth unemployment rate was linked to the extremely high, ridiculous numbers of foreign student permits that were allowed under the tenures of Minister Fraser and Minister Miller. The fact that they're kind of doubling down on flawed processes and a lack of coordination at a time when we have a jobs crisis is really concerning. So we did try to hold the minister to account today on that. We do not think that clearly as evidenced in the Auditor General report, the government has the system under control, and we do have concerns about the government continuing to bring in high levels of foreign students permits when we know that there's fraud and youth jobs crisis. And my colleague Brad will speak to the fraud component and what we heard at committee.
Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Michelle ended things perfectly. Friends, that's just a little snapshot into the immigration situation in Canada. If you heard the Prime Minister a year ago say, we're going to fix Canada's immigration system, and you just took comfort in it and assumed, okay, they're going to fix it, everything's good. Far from it. Far from it. We're talking millions of people that don't have any status here, that aren't supposed to be here, and thousands more coming all the time. They want our healthcare system. They want to live in homes that Canadians would like to live in and be able to afford. They want to take jobs that Canadians would like to do, and that's not right. I have no problem whatsoever with immigration. None. But it's got to be done responsibly. You have to follow the rules, and the government has to follow the rules too. Well-established rules. We had a national consensus on immigration for a very long time, and the government has broken it. It's very simple. If we end up in a situation where we need workers in specific fields, absolutely, we'll bring them. We'll find them the best and brightest and offer them an opportunity to come to Canada and do those jobs. But we don't do that if there are Canadians that are willing, able, and qualified to do those jobs. That's when that happens. If someone wants to come here, they need to be able to support and sustain themselves. They need to have the means to do that. If somebody is coming here as an asylum seeker, it needs to be a bona fide asylum claim that needs to be adjudicated quickly. And if that claim turns out to be bogus, you got to go. You can't stay. These people are ripping us off. The ones that are coming here now are screwing us and taking up so much of our hard-earned money that we pay to the government in tax, supposedly to make the country better for us. And they're making it better for everybody but us. That's my time for today, friends. Hope you have a fantastic one. I will catch you right back here in less than 24 hours with another episode of Scott Fox After 9. As always, a couple seconds here of Pat James and the whole truth. Hey now.